Alrighty, and welcome back to another episode of the Comics Around the World podcast. As always, I'm your host, Orion Sky Comics, aka Mateo, and as always, I am accompanied by
Frankie. What is up, dude? We've got a monumental episode here.
We do. Let me put on the mask real quick. So, if you guys didn't know already, there we go. There we go. I'm just gonna have my headphones like this. There we go. So, God, I look so goofy in this. Alrighty, so now we're back in action. This side. There we go.
You're gonna prefer not wearing it. I feel like.
Oh yeah, I was like moving like my entire body to look around.
I'm glad you put it on for a little bit though.
It's right here. It's right here, and theme for today's episode.
Yes.
So this is your first time reading it, and this is my third time reading it. But before we get to the reviews, I got a little package, nice little live unboxing. Alrighty. So
I'm currently I'm not getting rid of everything, but I'm getting rid of a decent chunk of my physical collection of comics. I wanted to send Mateo something. We've got
pretty large box.
We've got some books in there, and we got some action figures in there, which I'll explain. I'll explain those once you open them. But I know that you will absolutely love the books in here. I know that for a fact.
The seal has come off.
I think the action figures are on top. You know one of them. One of them is Nova, because I got a Nova action figure, and he was like very loose. And I wanted to get a better one, but I was like, well, I mean, like the one you've got, it still like works. Like it'll stand up. So like I was just being OCD, and I was like, I don't want it to go to waste. So
right.
Also, I got a Nova comic yesterday.
Oh, you did? Nice. That's sick. All right, the box is now open. Nice. Get this paper out of the way. So, like Frankie just said, nice.
It's an awesome figure, dude.
It is sick. Look at that.
You'll be able to pose him enough and stand him up. He looks awesome, dude.
Yeah. Look at that. Pretty sick. His foot's right there.
It's Annihilation Nova, too.
I know, which makes it even better.
Yeah.
But up next, this is a really cool one. We got Raphael.
Yes.
Look at that.
So, sick. Dude, the story behind him is he is actually my childhood figure. No joke. So I have two Raphael figures identical. Like that one, I have my other childhood one over there. For some reason, I grew up with two Raphaels with the same costume. And I've been like going through my stuff, and I was like, well, like he's a really cool figure. And we're reading TMNT, so I was like, I'm gonna send you him too. That is my childhood TMNT Raphael figure.
This is history right here, guys. Look at that. This is history.
Dude, it's an awesome figure too.
It is pretty sick.
I love he's got a little costume on.
Oh yeah, the fucking yin and yang symbol in the center. Hell yeah. Awesome. Nice. Up first, we got one of my favorite runs. JSA by Jeff Johns. Awesome.
Well, it's the whole run.
Oh,
it's
no
all
way.
of them. It's JSA volumes 1 through 3.
Volume 3 right here.
The spines all go together. They look amazing.
Volume 2.
All of the JSA omnibuses.
Dude, that's so sick. Awesome. Spot. I'm try to show the spot.
Because I messaged you, I was like, JSA is like one of your favorite comics, right? And you're like,
oh yeah.
And I was like, all right, I got just the thing.
Dude, thank you so much, Frankie, for the nice JSA. Because I've been meaning to get them in like in their omnibus form, but I just never gotten around. Let me see if I can do this.
Haven't read it yet, but I've flipped through those a good bit of times. The art is amazing. Dude, they look so good on the shelf.
Fantastic. I cannot wait to see that on the shelf. Thank you again. This is pretty sick. TMNT.
Of course.
Sick. And Richard Rider. very, very sick. I gotta return the favor some way, somehow, very, very soon. So be on the lookout for that.
Glad you enjoy it.
All right. So since we're starting on a pretty high note, might as well just go a little bit downhill while reviewing the Dark Knight Returns. All right. So
All right.
like we said earlier, this is my third time reading it, and this is Frankie's first time reading it. So I kind of want to start off with you. What did you think about it?
So I was expecting to not like it because I typically don't like older comics. Like the
Okay.
earliest I usually enjoy is like 90s. Um, it's very rare I like stuff from the 80s and before. Although I really like Infinity Gauntlet, so like there's exceptions, but I ended up I enjoyed it a good bit. Like I had a really good time with it. You can see where the inspiration is for like how it changed Batman. Like there's just so many instances which I'm sure we'll talk about like there's a shot from The Dark Knight Rises that it like
Mm-hmm.
uses from this comic when it's like the cop with like the younger cop and he's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, you're in for a show today." I love that part in The Dark Knight Rises. So,
that was sick. Yeah.
um it feels like a very it's very cinematic like the comic, which that was probably my favorite aspect of it. I already knew I really enjoyed the art. I had flipped through it before. Absolutely love the art. The story is pretty good pretty much the whole way through. I felt like it was a lot of the times a little bloated with just words and dialogue. I felt like there was a bit too much of that, but overall, I really enjoyed it. How did you feel? Like, what was some new takeaways you took away, whether they're positive or negative? What were some like new thoughts you had about it after this reread?
So, like the new thoughts that I have for this reread are mainly in a more positive light.
Okay.
So I really like the artwork, for example. I never really had an issue with the artwork, but just more like rereading it and like actually looking at the art. It's good. It's really solid artwork. I really like the style of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I like how he draws basically like every character just like very differently. Like
Yeah.
they don't look alike. If there was like a comparison, I'd say Jim Gordon and Bruce Wayne, but like that's even like stretching it a little bit. But the artwork is really good. I really like it. I kind of pick up on like the subtleties of like the subtext of the story and everything. Um, I also picked up quite a bit of what like parts were influenced for Batman versus Superman. So
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of lines like not even like the major lines like at the end where Bruce is kicking Superman's ass. That iconic line where he says like I want you to remember the one man who beat you. Obviously, it's not Batman Superman. That's like a really iconic line, but it's more like the little subtle lines. Like for example, when Alfred was saying he hopes like the next generation of Waynes don't inherit like an empty wine cellar, even though there's not gonna be a next generation. So that's in the comic and as well as in the Batman vs Superman. Obviously, that take of Batman Bruce Wayne from Batman vs Superman takes a lot of inspiration from the Dark Knight Returns, even if it does deviate from the source material a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and one takeaway I had is like how much more cynical this Batman is, and how much he enjoys like
Dude.
inflicting pain on people. Like it's it's pretty awesome. Not gonna lie, I really like this version of Batman. Just like how brutal he is, and like he just doesn't really care about like not really the well-being of others, but like when he's fighting like the mutants and like the thugs, he just like goes on just like full
Dude, that
rage.
scene in the mud when he's like something about like I could stop there. I
Yeah,
forget exactly what he says.
it
He's
was in the tank, or like he's like in the mud.
no in the mud. It's
Okay.
like it the panels they like kind of pan away from the action like as he's like breaking his bones.
Oh yeah,
Um yeah, he was very brutal. But
yeah. Um, but yeah,
the only issue I have with the art, like the only thing I can say that's negative, because I think it's like beautiful pretty much the whole way through. Like I would just stop and stare at pages like a
yeah.
lot of the times. The only issue I had like was sometimes I couldn't really tell what was happening every so often. Like, big example is when the Joker like snaps his own neck.
Yeah.
I did I didn't know he did that. I had to go to I was literally searching on YouTube like how did the Joker die? I was like I couldn't figure out how he died, but he
Yeah.
snaps his own neck like to make it look like Batman did it.
Mm.
Um, I I guess maybe he didn't want to show it, but I was like I don't know. And then
Yeah.
when Robin is being choked on the Ferris wheel or
Yeah.
whatever, I couldn't figure out how that guy died. But I think it's just when it was turning and he like hit something on the track above him or something and fell off. I thought he
Oh
got shot.
yeah.
I thought he got shot. I couldn't figure out. So there was a couple times where I was like, I like don't know what just happened. But other than that, the art is like just like perfection, honestly.
Yeah, and the artwork is really good, and it kind of like I always like throughout the entire graphic novel, I'm just thinking to myself, what happened with
Yeah.
like Frank Miller's artwork? Like, what happened? Because this is like not even close to what he's doing right now.
I'm not an
It's
artist, but I feel like artists like Frank Miller and John Romita Jr. that have been in the industry so long, they like want to maybe change their style and like maybe show they're not a one trick pony. I don't actually know the answer, but I feel like you know they just change, and unfortunately, some of them just. I'm sure some change for the better. I
yeah,
just can't think of them on their heads, but uh, yeah, I mean this artwork is just perfect.
it is really good, and kind of just to bounce off of like what like the parallels between this comic and Batman versus Superman is another scene like towards the end of Batman versus Superman, like during the warehouse scene, and Batman busts through the wall with like the machine gun in his hand. And he says, "I believe you." When the guy said, "I'll do it," like believe me, I will. That's basically the same thing in the comic. Another thing that I kind of picked up on was throughout the entire comic, there are instances where it cuts to the TV like news stations and like the news anchors are like interviewing different people, like the psychologists, like
Yeah,
experts, and like everyone else, and it kind of reminds me of how they did it in Batman versus Superman, where instead of it's Batman having that like very polarizing discourse, it's Superman.
yeah.
And it's just that one scene is like the montage of Superman saving people, while in the background we hear different people saying their opinions on Superman and like how he basically acts and fits into the world. That's something that I liked.
That
And
also, if you've ever even just seen a Spawn comic, you know that that has inspired Todd McFarlane in his art. He does like a lot of that, like TV broadcast with the
okay,
writing on top of it. That's in even Spawn #1. Like Todd McFarlane's definitely taken inspiration from that, which is also really cool.
yeah, definitely. One thing that I knew was gonna happen, but it still catches me slightly off guard was the how the first two issues kind of revolve around the mutants, and then the last two issues kind of do their own thing. And but the
Yeah.
mutants kind of turn into the was it the Sons of Batman or the Knights of Batman, something like that.
Well, there's like that's like a really one of the most interesting things this comic does is that I feel like it's really trying to show like how the world would react to
Yeah,
Batman. Because at first everyone seems to kind of be excited that he's back, but then yeah, like they have this. I don't know if they're from the mutants, but like they're just a sect of people that's like no, Batman's like doing good.
yeah,
So they have the Sons of Batman. They like paint their face with the bat symbol. Um, the mutants are like already there in that first issue, and they're just kind of like the bad guys that are trying to take over. It's
yeah.
kind of interesting. We've never like really seen them in any Batman media,
That's true.
like movies, video games. Never really seen the
Yeah,
mutants.
I mean, I feel like this is of like a group of villains that would really work well, and like a movie or any media, like you just said. I do think, um, I think it was in either the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League or the final version of Justice League, Zack Snyder's version, where that scene where Batman's standing on top of this massive tank and like he's like that group of people he's tied up. there are people who are saying those are like the mutants or whatever,
Oh, really?
and like that tank is like exactly the same tank from the Dark Knight Returns.
The tank in the Dark Knight Returns, this comic is
It's sick.
massive, dude. It's
It is sick.
huge. I mean, I feel
Yeah,
like the reason we haven't seen the mutants is because they don't really have like a main bad guy. Like the main one is just this big brute that like is violent. Like he doesn't
yeah,
really. That's probably why we haven't seen them. They work really well in an Arkham game, like just like taking over the city, you know.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but talking about Batman versus Superman, um, let me talk about my least favorite part of this comic,
Okay.
um, which is Superman. Superman in this comic is an absolute travesty and a sin, and I hate everything about it. Um, like I feel like a lot of the times like we talk about how we don't like the impact injustice Superman has had on the the greater whole of Superman's image. I think this is worse. This is
Oh,
worse.
really?
Here's why. In Injustice Superman, I actually really like Injustice Superman because like I don't like the impact it's had, but I like him in that story because it's we see why he turns. Like it's like he has a reason that he turns. In The Dark Knight Returns, um, he's just the president's little bitch. I mean, he just
Yeah,
does,
basically.
he just does whatever the president says.
Yeah.
Like I don't like I just hate it. Like that was another thing I googled after I read it. I was like, why is Superman fighting Batman? Like, is it really just because the president told him to? And he calls him good boy. I was like, Clark, you're just gonna take that? Like,
Yeah.
I just didn't like how Superman is just kind of the president of the United States. It's Ronald Reagan, but the
Hmm.
president of the United States, like little pet. Like he's just
Yeah.
told him, like, hey, Batman's becoming a problem. Go take care of him. I could not stand that, and
Yeah.
that's why I think you might like this. Um, I'll say this: the motivation for Superman and Batman to fight in this comic is worse than the motivation for them to fight in Batman versus Superman. The movie.
Yeah.
That I 100% like believe that. I buy the motivation in Batman versus Superman the movie more than the Dark Knight Returns fight.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely not in the minority with when it comes to this interpretation of Superman because
Oh, really?
I do see there are some people who say like the interpretation of Superman is really bad. The same points that you made, how he's abiding by the U.S. government, does whatever they want, they order him to, essentially. And if you know Superman, he doesn't really do that per se. Um, he just does what he thinks is best for the world, not
Yeah.
just a single government. So it is a very weird take on Superman. It kind of out of his nature, and I don't know if they explain like how he became the way he is in this comic, but it is a pretty negative take, or like a pretty bad take on Superman.
The only like explanation we kind of get is there's like these text bubbles of narration of him, and it basically is saying like he's talking about like Batman and Oliver and how they all retired and how what he's doing is the only way he can still help people. Like he's saying, I think like the way he acts, people don't even like see him because he's going so fast, which was really
Yeah,
cool. But the way I interpreted it was like this is the only way he's able to like legally still help people and save people, which I get. But like, I think at the same time, if the president told him to like go put an end to Batman, I just don't think Clark would do that.
yeah, and especially with the fact like we just said, like this is like the best thing you can do legally. I don't think any
He's he's
like
Superman.
you can't get a subpoena to court and like arrested and said it's Superman. And
Yeah,
I know there are comics that like treat Superman as a fugitive in a sense where he does something that the government doesn't want him to do, but he still does it anyways because it's for the betterment of
yeah.
the people and stuff like that. So
And
this is
I like
weird.
I like the idea of him like listening to humanity, like he does in Man of Steel, where he like does the handcuffs. I like that idea, but like not if it goes against what he believes.
Yeah,
And he clearly doesn't want to fight Bruce. Like I just felt like it was a very forced fight. It was a very cool fight though.
It
Very
was cool.
I enjoyed
Yeah.
the fight, and I loved Old Man Oliver. That was something I was not
Hmm.
expecting at all.
Yeah, that was
Um,
pretty cool.
so, I mean, the fight was awesome. I'm not going
It
to complain
was,
about it.
even though the motives for the fight were I don't know.
Yeah, I
the
just
the
didn't like him.
the fight itself was cool because you can see both of their monologues and like how like what they're thinking throughout the entire fight, which I really liked.
Okay, now I have to say another thing I hated. I hate that they couldn't talk to each other during the fight. I wanted
That's
them
true, yeah.
to be talking.
Because
Like
in the movie, like they're like talking, but then like in the comic, it's just like thought bubbles or like narration text.
yeah, because Batman basically says like he puts stuff in his ears, so not Batman, Superman can't like do anything to his ears. But I was like, dude, I want to hear them like going back and forth.
Right.
But maybe they couldn't go back and forth because their motives were so bad. So they,
Yeah.
didn't want to discuss that. So,
They're like saying like this is like the stupidest way to fight, but we still have to fight.
but it looks cool though.
It does. So I kind of want to touch upon some characters that show up throughout this series. Obviously, we got the mutant leader, and like the mutants in general. Well, we kind of already discussed how like they're pretty just like there, and I feel like since the mutants follow the mutant leader, and once the mutant leader is beaten, either all of them or a certain section of them become followers of Batman. Kinda makes me think about the Minions and Despicable Me. Because they kind of do the same thing in a sense.
I didn't know that the Sons of Batman were mutant like
That's
guys.
what I think, because at
I
least
can see that. I'm not saying you're
yeah.
wrong. Yeah.
Uh that's what I believe. But again, I'm not entirely sure. But it still made me reminded of like the Minions, because like they always follow like the most like the top
Yeah.
guy or whatever. So when Batman beats the mutant leader, they follow now Batman, the top guy of Gotham. Um, how did you feel about Carrie Kelly Robin?
I liked her Robin. I don't like feel too strongly either way because I feel like she doesn't have like a super big personality just because she's kind of just following Batman's orders. She just kind of follows what Bruce says. He's treats her as a soldier, and she follows along for the most part. There's a couple times where she doesn't listen, but I liked her as Batman. I liked her design. Her design was really cool, like the little glasses.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't feel like too strongly either which way. She didn't have too big of a impact on me, but I liked her Robin for sure.
Oh yeah. One thing that I had a slight issue with is during the first fight between Batman and the mutant leader, where Batman obviously loses. Carrie Kelly Robin is just like looking at like that fight, and then helps Batman back into the tank or Batmobile or whatever, and then takes him back to the cave, and then directly after that, Batman's like, okay, yeah, and then like recruits her like without question, essentially, which was kind of weird to me because I would assume he would be like very hesitant and like slightly freaked out that someone knows like who he is essentially and like his identity or whatever. But I don't think it matters too much in this comic at least. But that's just something that I kind of picked up on. I was like, he was really, really okay with this random kid dressed up as Robin, and he just like basically takes her in immediately.
True. I mean, it's pretty quick, but I don't know. I guess I didn't give it too much thought. It's just like I like the dialogue between him and Alfred right then.
Oh yeah.
Alfred was like, what about Jason? And, I like that part a lot. So, but I really What else?
The Joker. So the Joker throughout this comic, at the beginning, he's cured, he's sane and stuff like that. But once he sees that the Batman is back, he reverts back to him being the Joker essentially, and he still goes through the process of rehabilitation and acts like he's still okay. And then he goes on that talk show kills everyone in the talk show, and it goes on like a murder spree at the fair and everything. And like you said, kind of kills himself in a sense, where he just breaks his neck because Batman only paralyzed him when he broke his neck. So Joker just finished the job. And even though I don't like the Joker, I really liked the type of monologue he gave at the end when he's like on the ground with like paralyzed, and how they'll never like realize how Batman actually never killed him, but he killed himself. But they'll never know that.
He's telling him you didn't have the nerve. Like he says something like 1 more ounce of pressure, and you would have, but you didn't have the nerve. I love that part. And then I loved right when like Batman's like actually coming back, like Bruce coming back as Batman. You see the Joker, and his smile just slowly grows, and he's like Batman.
Yeah, it was great, and that's me saying that the Joker was great in this comic is a lot because I don't like the Joker at all. But yeah, overall, what would you rate it? Any recaps or anything like that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I wrote down a good bit. Because like this was a monumental read in my comic book history.
Okay.
I feel like okay, actually I'll talk about one more negative and then I'll just go to the positives. One more negative. I hated Bruce Batman dressing up as people. Like, okay, he dresses up twice. He dresses up as an old creepy lady in the liquor store, and then he dresses up as like a guy in a suit. He has like a face mask. I thought that was weird. I didn't like it. Like, I don't know. It was just very strange. Like he's literally like an old hag in the liquor store, like fighting the mutants.
Speaking of which, what did you think about the lady with like the
Nazi lady?
The Nazi lady with the Nazi tits and ass.
It was an interesting character. That's that was. I gave her a triple take. I was like, what is this character? Definitely, that was just a very weird scene. The Nazi lady, the old hag Batman. I don't know. And then my final negative, which I've already talked about, I feel like you might agree with me on this. Like, I feel like the comic is just bloated with like a bit too much like dialogue and talking. Like, there's this one page where like it's kind of creepy because it happened, but it's this guy that like goes and shoots up a movie theater that's like it's either a Batman inspired movie or something, and like it's kind of just like showing like the effect Batman returning is having on society, which I really enjoyed like as a whole. But overall I felt like sometimes it was just like a lot of like reading to get the point across, which I feel like it didn't need to take that much.
Yeah, I do agree, especially with like it's something that I really liked, but also was a bit much with the news interviews, and like when it keeps cutting back to the news anchors, them giving their opinions or interviewing other different people on their opinions, stuff like that. It did get, because there are like pages of just like 9, 12 panels of just text and the interviewers and like the news people talking. So it did get a bit much. I do agree with you there.
Yeah. But like that's a nitpick. It's still, everything like in it is really good. I just felt like it was a little bit much sometimes. But now for like the positives. My favorite like part of just this entirely is I feel like the moments, there's just like in the first issue when he's like returning, and it like you'll see like when he's returning, the action shots they show, they don't show Batman. Like he just like reaches through the glass and grabs this guy, and then it shows like some like thunder crack or like the lightning, and I feel like I could hear the Batman soundtrack in the background while I was reading it. Like those parts were just that was just my favorite aspect, and that's when like the guy's like, oh, you're in for a show today, and like they don't show. I love how they don't actually show him. Same as Superman. When Superman first shows up, you just see like a blur. I really love that. It felt cinematic. I love the part with Harvey Dent where he gets his like face fixed in
Yeah.
this and at the very end when like Batman confronts him, he realizes like it shows his normal face and then it shows a quick panel of like his whole face is Two-Face, showing that like even though his face is fixed, his like he's been consumed by that second half. That's and he's like, "What do you see, Batman?" And then Batman looks and he sees like a bat, and he's like a reflection. I love that part. I loved how it felt like Bruce Wayne had the Venom symbiote in this comic, where he keeps like talking about Batman almost like it's like an entity trapped in himself. Um, that was really great. How he was like, yeah. These like robbers are like coming up to him in the first issue, and he says like, "We know so many ways to hurt him." I was like, "All right,
Yeah.
Eddie." Like,
Yeah. He's like, it's like kind of what I said in like the beginning, where like he's like a lot more cynical. He enjoys like inflicting this pain amongst these like thieves, crooks, the bad guys essentially, and it feels like a little like voice in his head is just kind of like taking over, like you said, how like I think it was in the when he was being chased by like when he first appeared, he like paralyzes a man, and before that, he figures out there's 9 ways that can take him down. Like 4 or 5 of them include me killing him, and then like so on and so forth. I thought it was pretty cool. Just like his strategic mind on like how to take down someone in like such a short amount of time, and just how violent he is. It's a really cool take on Batman, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really like that. Like when he says that, he's like, "We know so many ways to hurt him," and then I remember the robbers are like, "He's enjoying this. Like, leave."
Yeah.
Like they run away because like they can tell he's like into it. I think they say.
Yeah.
I also I liked the whole like Jim Gordon like is retiring and this new commissioner, and at one point Batman's like, she reminds me of like Jim when he started, because that's like how he was. I like that dynamic. Jim Gordon is really great in this.
I think he is really good. He's more same thing like with Batman. He's more cynical. He's more what's it called? Not really nihilistic, but more negative about everything. And when he was basically doing like the ceremony to was it basically passing down the torch of commissioner to himself and like the new commissioner, how he's saying like, I don't envy you, and there is a lot of things that will come your way, but I still wish the best of luck to you. So that I liked a lot too.
Yeah, I feel like it felt like it was just almost like a cycle repeating itself with the new commissioner, where she's going to chase him, but then eventually realize like he's needed.
Yeah. What was it? Something else I wanted to say. Another thing I wanted to tie in with Batman versus Superman, because the when I first reread the comic, that was like right after I watched Batman vs Superman, and ever since then, like I rewatched that movie like a couple more times because it's one of my favorite comic movies. Very hot take, but it is one of my favorite comic movies. What was it? Oh, I think I have it pulled up here. I really liked the I'm like blank. Oh, and like another line that they used in the fight between Batman and Superman and the comic and in the movie, where he was saying how like his parents died on the street with like for no reason at all, and how he goes on to say like my parents taught me the world only makes sense if you force it to. I think that line from the comic to the movie was really well done, and it's something that I forgot that was said in the comic. I was like, connections.
Yeah, it's cool when you like when you see like, oh my god, like that was
Yeah.
like that Dark Knight Rises part was like that's one of my favorite parts in that movie. And then when I saw it in here, I was like, no way, like I love that part.
Yeah, it's great. So between this and the animated movie, which one would you prefer?
I haven't seen the animated movie yet.
Oh, you haven't?
No,
Oh man,
I'm gonna watch it now though. I'm definitely gonna watch it.
it's so much better.
Is it?
It's so much better. I think it's a lot better. Because I kind of already said it, but the narration text with the between the fight between Batman and Superman is being said. Like they're actually saying this stuff to each other instead of being the narration text. And there's like a lot of things that happen in the movie that is I think is better executed than what it is in the comic. And the movie, there are two movies, so it's the Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and Part 2. So they didn't luckily cram everything into one movie.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the two like inner monologues between I see. I didn't know what you were talking about last episode, but the operating table,
Yeah,
and he's like, "This isn't a mud pit. This is an operating." I was like, "Damn!" And then when he
dude.
tells Superman at the end about like I'm gonna be the one,
Yeah. When I'll tell you this right now, that scene with the operating table is so much cooler in the animated movies.
Is
It's
it?
so much. It's badass. It is like when I'm saying like the movie is so much better than comics. It is so much better than the comic.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's my opinion. But I really like the movies. I
The
prefer
only
it much over than the comics.
the only thing I've heard about it is that it does a good job adapting the comics.
It
So
does do a really good job. It doesn't really deviate from anything at all, I think. But yeah, it is really, really good.
I'm definitely gonna check it out. So for rating The Dark Knight Returns, I think I've mostly said everything I've got. Have you said any other takes you've got?
Um, the movie's better. Uh, so when it comes to people saying how like it's a bad adaptation of like The Dark Knight Returns, I do think that it was um
What's a bad adaptation?
the Dark Knight Returns for Batman vs Superman.
Oh, okay.
Because people are saying like how like they adapted too many comics into one movie, like Dark Knight Returns, Death of Superman, and there was something else I forgot what it was, but it was like those two, like the biggest like comic books for each of those like two like characters like in one movie was a little too much, and especially killing off Superman in his second movie. I
Yeah,
do
big
think
failure there.
yeah, I do think that when where it does pull from the source material, it does do, it does it well. But then again, that is my personal bias towards the movie. I think it does it really well. I like how they pull lines from the comics and implement it into the story, and it just works in a sense. And the fight between Batman and Superman, it's another thing that people criticize. They didn't think it was like the reason was kind of dumb.
Well, it
Where
wasn't very good in this comic.
yeah, exactly.
The Dark Knight Rises kind of blends together The Dark Knight Returns and Nightfall. Kind of
Yeah.
blends those two together, which I think is a really cool combo. Um, yeah, I I was very surprised with how much I enjoyed The Dark Knight Returns. Like I said, older comics really aren't my thing.
Mhm.
But like I really can't even talk. It the art was so good. Like it's tough for me to even really put it into words. Like
Yeah.
I was just like glued to the page every single time I was glued to the page. There was not a moment where the art was bad. The only, like I said, sometimes couldn't really tell what happened maybe, but like
Yeah, and like you said earlier with like John Romita Jr., Frank Miller, and probably maybe other artists too, how they changed their art style just like to like add some variety to it, and it kind of it kind of sucks. Um,
yeah, yeah.
but I do remember like when I was reading, I read 300 like a while ago. I would say like 2 years ago, and the art style is not too different to what it is currently. But it's very like, you know, it bounces back and forth with like the quality of the art, and at least in this comic, it's really well done. The visualization of Batman is done really well. I love it when like it shows him like doing the action stuff, but like he's like a silhouette. I think
Yeah.
on top of the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
That I thought that was really cool. Like you said, with like his first appearance in like 10 years, you don't see him, but you see like his fist like grabbing people, pulling through them. Like
Yeah, I love that.
it's like, you know, come on, it's like it's really cool. Like the dynamic poses Batman does, especially with Robin. Um, and when you get
The full page spreads of them like jumping together
yeah,
is really great.
it's really good.
What? Obviously, you're not going to fully remember, but did the rating go up for you on this reread? Like, what was it on maybe your first or second read, and what is it now, or is it the same thing? Or
For I do remember, I can't say this. My rating right now is a little higher.
okay,
It is a little higher, but my opinion of the fact that it's overrated and it is not the best Batman comic of all time, that my opinion with that still stands like solidly. I still think there are a plethora of Batman comics that are much better than this one, but it's still good. It is still a really good comic. At least I can say that, because before I didn't like it because I just thought it was like I just didn't like it. I couldn't say anything positive about it. But like now, I've read a bunch of Batman comics. I've read a bunch more comics in general. So I can say that it is a good comic book. It does a lot of things really well with its storytelling, its visual storytelling, and just like all those aspects. It does do it really well. But my position on it being overrated still stands.
okay. What would you give it? What would you give it?
I
Out
would
of 5 stars.
Out of 5 stars, I would give it a 3.5 out of 5.
Okay. I'm gonna give it a solid 4 stars.
Okay.
4 out of 5. Um, it I think it loses me. The main parts where it loses me is the Superman portrayal, and just a little bloated sometimes with, I think it could have been cut down a little bit.
Yeah.
But overall, really solid. I think I haven't really read that much Batman, but I would definitely put Nightfall over this. I preferred Nightfall.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love Nightfall.
Nightfall's great. That's another one that's an older comic that I was surprised how much I loved. Actually, volumes 2 and 3, they're okay, but I would put Nightfall over this. But like, I think this might have my favorite Batman moments from any comic book. Like, I think the moments here would really make it shine. Like I said, when he's talking to Two-Face, when he's coming back and like you see the lightning and you don't see him, and the operating table. Even though I don't like the motivation, the fight between him and Superman is really great. And I like how he fakes his own death, and I like the way Superman like knows and he like kind of winks. I really like that part. So there's a lot of really, really, really amazing moments in here.
Definitely.
That I loved.
Yeah. And when it comes to like, because I always roll my eyes when people recommend, when someone asks, what are some of your recommendations for Batman? And everyone has the same like 3 or 4 comics they always recommend. Year One, which is better than Dark Knight Returns. They always have Long Halloween. Another one that's better than Dark Knight Returns.
Oh yeah. Oh my god, I forgot about Long Halloween. Long Halloween is so good.
It's really good.
Dude, so is no one talks about the prequel and sequels to those. Dark Victory. Those are amazing too. I'd put those over this.
Yeah. But I do see how this would be a good starting point for someone with Batman, but I can also see better choices, because I feel like a lot of people, for this being their first Batman comic, they might be a little confused, or like have like the different interpretation of Batman in a sense, you know?
I would not recommend this to a first-time Batman reader. Like,
yeah.
I think it's clearly very influential. Like
Mm.
a lot, not even just Batman. Like I said, Todd McFarlane took inspiration from this. Like there's clearly a lot, but like for a first time Batman reader, I wouldn't recommend this.
Yeah, there's just like a lot of, you know, history with Batman in this. It changed it, like you said, it changed like the scope of not only the character of Batman, but how comics were made from there on. Then it kind of changed like a paradigm shift for the comic book industry, how they just want to make everything dark and more gritty, and we can see that in the '90s with a lot more characters taking on more gritty, darker personas. The sharp costumes with the pouches and everything. We see a lot of those, like the influence, both good and bad, and like the night, especially in the '90s, like I said. Um, but for a first time reader, no, because I feel like you'd get a more like a different interpretation of Batman if this is your first Batman comic.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, from what I understand, it's like a future, but also like Elseworld. Like I
Yeah,
don't think it. Yeah. I main reason I wouldn't recommend it is it's very much. I mean, it is a graphic novel. Like it
yeah,
is a graphic novel. I would recommend something a bit more comic booky,
mm-hmm.
like Nightfall or Long Halloween. Like those are just a bit more like what you're going to see more often with the comic book. This is very different. This is like a graphic novel. Like it's I'm not saying it's like dense or like hard to read, but like I don't know, this took me a while to read. Like this there's just a lot to it. There's a lot
Yeah,
to read. And yeah, I would just recommend something like a bit more of what you'll see more if you read Batman comics. Not, this is very, very unique and very
yeah,
different from what you're gonna read most of the time.
and and it's another comic book that I hate people recommend because I reread this one recently, earlier this year, and I thought it was just bad. It's Batman Hush.
I haven't read Batman Hush either.
I would recommend that to a new reader because it does encapsulate a lot of Batman's rogues gallery, and you get like a bits and pieces of like all of Batman's rogues gallery. Some is like we get Catwoman, and we get more of like his backstory in a sense. But I would recommend that comic just to get like a grasp of like some of the rogues gallery that Batman has. But eh, it's
That's
bad. It's
that's
bad.
why I would recommend Nightfall because at the beginning they all break out of the prison and he
Yeah,
has to go up like in a row against a lot of his rogues gallery and a
yeah.
lot of ones that aren't as well known, like the I already forget his name. What's the puppet guy?
The ventriloquist.
The ventriloquist. Like you get to see, some more lesser known ones.
Yeah.
That's honestly the reason why I would recommend Nightfall, like that first volume,
Mhm.
because you just see a lot of the rogues gallery. Killer Croc, of course, Joker. So
I mean, this could be like a future episode where like we give like recommendations of like for different comic book characters, and we explain
for new
why.
readers,
Yeah,
I feel like I couldn't do it. I need some more Batman under my belt. I really haven't read that much Batman. Um,
there was this list. Let me see if I have it. It was like a Batman like fan checklist where like it has like a bunch of Batman stories, and I did like a little series on my TikTok where I went down the list and kind of ranked in my own way. And I kind of stopped like halfway through because I got super burned out on Batman because I would read Batman back to back to back to back. So I was like, but it was for that list that I read Nightfall, and I really really like Nightfall, and I also really like Batman Prey, which is one that people really doesn't have really heard of, but it basically like a younger Batman, like in his early days, facing off against Hugo Strange, but more in a psychological sense, where Hugo Strange does like a psychoanalyzes Batman, and that gets under Bruce's skin a lot, and you can see that. And just Hugo Strange in this comic he's really like demented, but it's really
yeah,
good. It's really really good. But yeah, so I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5. Movie's better. Um, Superman sucks in this.
he's drawn really well though,
He is
dude.
drawn really well.
I love the way Clark is drawn. Like
Yeah.
like I said, the art's perfect. I give it a 4 out of 5. Solid. If you're a Batman fan, I definitely recommend it though.
Yeah.
Like if you've never read a Batman comic, yeah, there's some other stuff I'd recommend, but like if you told me this was the first one you read, I mean, I'm not going to say you're making a bad choice. Like
Especially with Superman, it's like you get like a weird like interpretation of Superman once you read. If this is like the first time you've read Superman in any
true.
capacity, and then you go on to read other Superman, it's like essentially a different character in a sense, just
Yeah.
because of like his like he's like on like the government's leash essentially.
Yeah, he's their bitch.
Exactly. Yeah. He's like,
No, at least it is like an Elseworld story, so at least you
yeah.
can say, okay, it's a different Superman.
Yeah. But yeah. So that was a review on The Dark Knight Returns. It was pretty monumental because obviously my opinion on it and my reaction to it landing on this comic last week. So it was a lot of fun revisiting this comic to solidify my position on it, and I'm happy to say it has been solidified. But now I kind of want to talk about. There's been a lot of news in the comic book movie world as of last week. A lot of Superman casting,
Yes.
and we can just start off with that. So, Superman Legacy casted, I think, a total of 4 people right now, 4 additional people. Um, those characters include Hawkgirl, Metamorpho, Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, and Mr. Terrific. So, I want to hear your opinion on like all these heroes being in the Superman movie. What do you think about it?
I I don't know. I always try and hold off opinions until I like know more, but like all I'll say is it's going to be a tough task to have all of these heroes slash villains slash whatever you want to call them in a debut Superman movie. Like this will be first time we see this Superman. You know, we've already got Lois Lane. That's a lot to juggle and like a
Yeah,
lot to put in one movie. Especially like this is the movie that is going to kick off this new DCU. If it's a failure, that is really, 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 really going to hurt the
yeah,
chances of the DCU being good. Like there's a lot riding on this movie, so it's a lot to put in there. But
yeah.
we'll see.
Someone
Not
did.
saying it's impossible.
That's true. Someone did mention that all these like different DC characters are going to be in the Superman movie. James Gunn did say this. I did save it on my phone because I thought it was really interesting take on it, and interesting in a good way. James Gunn says Superman is a man of two worlds: Clark with Lois, Jimmy and Perry, and Superman with his metahuman compatriots. How could I tell a full story about Clark slash Superman without including all areas of his life?
Yep.
So he does have a point. It could like because I know in comics there's like superheroes pop in here and there, so it could be in that aspect. Obviously, in a movie, it's much different because you're this is for like, the general audience who isn't used to like heroes popping in and out. So it might be like a thing where since this isn't a origin for Superman, it could be like some flashbacks when they first met, or like they just pop in here and there, like randomly, or it could be like a post credit thing. Um, who
I
knows?
definitely. I think if they're in the movie, like they're not there for long.
Yeah,
Like I think it's a very quick thing because like them getting cast as that I feel like is more important for like they're not going to care if they're in the movie for a second because now they're in the new DCU, so they're going to be in other projects. So like I think it'll be something very quick, but still like it's still a lot though.
yeah.
So
Um, so I thought it was pretty cool how they for the casting of Mr. Terrific, they got the actor who played Darwin from First Class.
mm-hmm.
I thought that was really cool because obviously they did him so dirty. The man who adapts to anything dies. So and from what James Gunn has been teasing on his social media, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, it feels like Mr. Terrific is gonna have a large role at least in this chapter in the DC universe. Because I think when it was first announced that James Gunn was taking over, one of his first posts was just a picture of Mr. Terrific. So I feel like he's gonna have like a really like standout or like important role throughout this whole chapter at least, which I'm excited for. I think Mr. Terrific is super underrated, and James Gunn is he's a really good director when it comes to adapting the lesser known characters into the big screen and then becoming household names, which I at least for DC, I much prefer like the lesser known B C list characters much more than like the A S tier characters. I think they're more interesting in a sense, and they have a lot of potential to be flushed out. Like with Hawkgirl, I grew up watching Justice League the anime series. She was badass in this, and when I was reading Hawkman by Jeff Johns, she was obviously in it, and I just love her character. And she's also in JSA as well. That's when she first debuted. She's a really cool character that I'm glad is going to get the spotlight that she deserves, as well as we're getting a Green Lantern, and it's not Hal Jordan, which is great, and it's Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, and Nathan Fillion, and I hear a lot of people being kind of hesitant on it because he is like 50.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are kind of hesitant on, him being Guy Gardner, but I have faith in it.
Yeah. I don't know. I never really get too into casting because like I don't know. I just don't. I gotta see it.
Yeah.
Once I like see them in the trailer, I'll be like, okay, because yeah, I would be a terrible casting director. I feel like I wouldn't be good at that job.
Yeah, I probably would be terrible too. And then we also get Metamorpho. It's a character that I haven't read too much on, but I'm aware of his existence. And the casting for Metamorpho is, I think, pretty solid because I've seen this actor. It's Anthony Carrigan. He's been in. He was in Barry. He was great in it, and I just feel like he will fit in the role really well. And obviously, we get Lois Lane, Superman, all that stuff. So I'm excited, and a lot of people are making fun of the fact that the Terrifics, which is basically DC's Fantastic Four, has already gotten like 2 of their 4 characters casted already, and for the Fantastic Four MCU, they've just gotten nothing since like 2019.
Yeah, the Fantastic Four. I mean, there's been a billion rumors, but
yeah,
no concrete info yet.
And it sucks because I love the Fantastic Four, and just not getting anything just sucks. But at least we're getting DC's Fantastic Four with the Terrifics, because there was something that James Gunn tweeted, like a piece of art that he tweeted that's just like, I guess teased like the future of the DCU, and in the center of it were the Terrifics. So I'm excited, and that's like a recent thing too. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Yeah. Lastly, I want to touch upon. Do you see the set leaks for Deadpool?
Yeah. I feel like actually, I was going to say a lot of people are saying this. I heard this in my comic book shop. He said that people are saying that they're thinking it's going to be Deadpool kills the Fox universe, like Deadpool kills the Marvel universe.
I would love that. That would be hilarious, and also kind of adapting Marvel kills the Marvel Universe comic, which is
like Deadpool. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, except Deadpool kills the Fox Marvel Universe.
And like, I don't know. I feel like that's like a genius thing. Like that's a really like funny thing to do, because they already got Jennifer Garner to come back as Elektra, which I'm pretty sure she should got get killed off like in an instant. I did hear rumors that Ben Affleck was on set to reprise his thing as Daredevil, which would be hilarious. There's also rumors of like the Fantastic Four showing up, the old X-Men group showing up.
There's definitely going to be some of those old X-Men.
Oh yeah,
I think Storm, something about she might be there.
Yeah,
but I saw the picture of the 2 of them. Deadpool suit looks amazing. Wolverine suit looks amazing. I hope he cuts the sleeves off.
I feel like they would.
I think everyone ever is saying they hope he cuts the sleeves off. But I will say, like, even if they don't, it's still a like damn good suit. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty great. We're getting to see him in the yellow and blue. So even if they don't, they did a great job.
Did you see the picture where they came with like the claws out?
No,
It was pretty cool, and like the glove has like the metal slits.
I did see. Yeah,
dude,
yeah.
that was like the first thing I saw. I was like, oh my god, it's so cool. But I'm very excited, and I love how like, they have like the 20th Century Fox logo and rubble in the back. I thought it was pretty funny. But I'm excited for it. It is on pause right now. They're not in production anymore because of like, the strike that's going on right now.
Yeah.
So not only that, everything's like suspended as of right now because of the strike going on. So we'll have to wait and see. Now to close.
Speaking of movies.
Exactly. Speaking of movies, we are gonna do the spin the wheel. The last two movies we saw was Green Lantern. That was the first one, and then we saw First Class.
Yes.
Oh man. So I don't know. I'm a little nervous. But we're gonna find out what we see this time. Alrighty, here we go. We're spinning away. Okay.
The first Avengers?
The first Avengers.
Let's go, dude.
Awesome. Great.
That's a solid movie.
Very solid. I actually rewatched it like 2 weeks ago. I love it. I think it still holds up. A lot of people are saying that it doesn't hold up anymore, which I just...
No. We're gonna get to see our first good movie.
Yeah, finally. I did like First Class.
I know. I was doing that trying to.
But yeah, when I was inputting it in again, I was getting nervous because there were a lot of bad movies.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be more bad than good.
Oh yeah, I was really hesitant at landing on like Thor 4 because it was right like. It was like
I know. I thought it was about to be Love and Thunder. I was like, oh god, dude! No. Don't make me watch that right now.
When we watch Thor 4,
I'm gonna dunk on that movie.
I'm gonna rip it to shreds.
Yeah, I'm gonna dunk on that movie.
Yeah, because I remember for that movie when the first opening scene, I was like, they're already messing up. This is already going off terribly.
Dude, Jason Aaron's run on Thor is like.
It's
probably like top 10 favorite comics of mine. I think it's. God, what the hell? Okay, we'll get to that one at some point.
we'll cross that road soon enough.
Instead, we get to watch a good movie.
And at the pinnacle, not the pinnacle, but like at the golden era of the MCU. So
yeah,
thank God. I might actually watch that after we finish recording. So that's that. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No. Big episode. This was a fun one.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to check out our Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at ComicsRTW. I am trying to be a little bit more active on League of Comic Geeks. So if you guys want to, you can follow me there at Orion Scott, and you can follow Frankie there at Frankie AM. I was at work yesterday. It was dead, and I was writing reviews on like the comics I read this week. So trying to be a little bit more active on there. So if you want to see the comic book I'm reading outside of the podcast, definitely go check it out.
Nice.
And it's a fun app
great
community.
Great site, yeah.
Yeah, it's great to like log comics, to interact, view discussions, all that type of stuff. But definitely go check that out, and definitely check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and on TikTok, and on YouTube and Spotify, which you're listening on to right now. Comics RTW, Comics Run the World. Thank you guys for listening. The comics run the world.